Good afternoon, listeners. This is your RJ Imad Kasir from Planet FM 87.6. The show is Mind and Muse. Every Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 2 p.m. we dive deep into the rich worlds of literature, art, mind sciences, book reviews. And we also invite esteemed guests to our studios to have discussions on these areas. And today it's a special episode as we'll be discussing one of the greatest novelists of our times, Paulo Coelho. Listeners, you can catch us live on www.radio.gov.pk/live-streaming. You can also follow our Facebook page, Planet FM 87.6, and you can download the Radio Pakistan app from Play Store to listen to us. So, get ready for a wonderful journey that is basically soul's journey, and we'll be having discussion on the lovely books he has written, Paulo Coelho, and through the books, he has changed lives, he has inspired hearts, and he has reminded us that the universe has a plan for each of us. And a man whose name has become synonymous with destiny, faith, courage, and to follow your dreams and heart. And Paulo Coelho, who is he? He is basically an author, a novelist. He was born in 1947 in Brazil. And believe it or not, he wasn't always the calm, spiritual writer as we know him today. As a young man, he was restless, a dreamer with a rebellious streak. And his parents didn't quite understand his need to write and explore and to follow his dreams. And they wanted him to become an engineer. So in an attempt to cure him, they had they had basically sent him to a mental institution for treatment. They thought that there is something wrong with him. So his parents, they sent him for treatment thrice. And once Paulo Coelho was referring to it, and he said that I wasn't mad. I was just a young man who refused to live the life others wanted him to live. So he has referred this in an interview that he refused to live the life others. And when he said others, he was referring to his parents, who thought that he was mentally ill and he needed some medical treatment. And before becoming a novelist, Coelho worked as a songwriter for famous Brazilian musicians, and traveled the world, experimented with mysticism, and he even joined a mysterious organization also, and that they studied spiritual symbols and rituals. And this was all before he was recognized as one of the greatest novelists of this era. And the turning point in his life was in 1986 when he walked a pilgrimage across Spain. And it was on that walk that he began to see life as a quest, not for money or fame, but for purpose. And that experience inspired his first major and probably the most read novels of him, The Alchemist. and the idea that every person is destined for something greater. So listeners, we will be discussing his works in detail, and let me just share the famous novels by this Brazilian author. Alchemist, as I just mentioned, that was written in 1986, and The Pilgrimage is another novel. Breida, I will be discussing that also. And then he had The Fifth Mountain, and The Devil and Miss Prim, and 11 Minutes, The Zahir, and The Winner Stands Alone, Aleph, and so there are many novels that he has written till date, and we will be discussing the major themes of his writings, his novels, and the style he carries, and the characters, and I'll be sharing my views on this wonderful novel, this novelist, and his books. And he is one of the most read novelists, and one of the most translated novelists also. And as I mentioned, that the book the first breakthrough was in 1986 when he wrote this famous novel, Alchemist. So we'll discuss more on Paulo Coelho's works right after this wonderful track. Welcome back, listeners. This is Imad Kasir from Planet FM 87.6. The show is Mind and Muse, and we are discussing one of the greatest novelists of this era, Paulo Coelho. And as I was mentioning before the break, that his first and probably the best novel, Alchemist, that was written in 1986, and it was first published in Portuguese language in 1988. It was written in 86 but published in 1988, and it sold only a few hundred copies at first. And Coelho's publisher, he actually had dropped him, but Paulo refused to give up, and a year later the book found a new publisher, and from that point onwards it took on a life of its own. Today it's sold over 65 million copies, and it has been translated into more than 80 languages, and is one of the best-selling books in history. So what makes this book so special? And I'm sure that most of our listeners, they have read this beautiful novel, and if they haven't read, they must have at least heard about this wonderful novel. And it is basically the story of Santiago. He is a young Andalusian shepherd who keeps having a recurring dream of a treasure buried near the Egyptian pyramids, and he decides to follow that dream, leaving behind his flock and his familiar life. So along the way he meets several different figures. He meets a wise old king, an English studying alchemy, and finally the alchemist himself, who teaches him that the greatest treasure isn't gold or silver or jewels, but self-discovery. And here is one of the most quoted lines from this book, and that it says, quote, "When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it," unquote. This quote, my listeners must have related to it, that this quote is so massively quoted, and there are movies across the border. We have seen movies based on this simple this one liner, this quote from this book, Alchemist, and this is absolutely true. Listeners, we discuss in our show, as I was sharing in the intro, that we discuss mind sciences also in our shows, and we invite guests on mind sciences also. So this novel, and specifically this the quote that I just shared from the book, that when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. So this quote basically is also it tells us the story of basically it is a novel, and that quote is for the hero of that novel. However, this is one of the greatest lessons in mind sciences also, and this is absolutely true, as I was referring to Paulo Coelho, that he had a very he had a journey and of self-discovery to Spain, and during that journey he had this idea of writing this lovely novel. So this mind sciences and this novel, since it is self-discovery, and in mind sciences also we basically look inside ourselves, we follow our actual path, we try to follow our dreams, we try to listen to our mind, and we in a way we are able to communicate with our minds. That is basically that is a way of defining mind sciences also. So in this novel, when we see that the hero, that shepherd that I just shared his story, that he has this dream that there is a treasure buried near the Egyptian pyramids, and he goes to search that treasure, and during that journey he meets so many different people, and all those whom he meets, they somehow teach him different lessons of life, and during that journey he ultimately he realizes that the actual treasure isn't outside yourself, isn't something we simply take this meaning of treasure, gold or any precious stuff, and but the actual treasure is inside us, and that is our self-discovery. And when we want to achieve something, the universe basically helps us, and this is also a lesson in mind sciences. We can relate this novel that way also, that it is basically self-discovery, it is basically mysticism that we discuss in detail, that the and listeners, I will be discussing more novels of Paulo Coelho also in today's show. But one thing you will find in all of Paulo Coelho's writings, all of his novels, that the stories are different, the cultures are different, but one thing is for sure, that there is always an angle of self-discovery in all of his novels, and he basically he takes us on this journey of our self-discovery. That is exactly we read when we read this Alchemist, and we realize that the journey apparently it seems that the journey is outside of one's self, that the hero is traveling the whole world in search of that treasure, but that treasure actually lies inside him, and that is basically his true self, his inner self, his self-discovery. Basically, that is the main theme of this particular novel Alchemist, and that theme is basically present, and that is carried in by him in rest of his works also. And this is something that makes Paulo Coelho one of the greatest novelists of this era, because he basically he encourages us, he compels us rather, he compels the readers to search for their own self, and that self-discovery stuff, as I mentioned, that the treasures, these are not outside somewhere, these are basically inside us. And once we realize those treasures, once we realize what is actually our dream, what we can actually achieve, and what are we blessed with, those are the actual treasures. And once we realize those, then we become unstoppable. And then rest of the stuff that we generally see as treasures, for instance, as I mentioned, that gold or silver or maybe diamonds or jewels or whatever you may call, but all that treasure that follows us once we are on the path of self-discovery. So that is something that makes this novel one of the greatest novels of this time. And one more thing, the listeners, that I want to share with my listeners is that once you start reading Paulo Coelho, and Paulo Coelho is very good for those who want to read good novels and they haven't read other novels or novels by other authors. A couple of shows ago, I had discussed the works of Dan Brown in Dan Brown Special. So Dan Brown, he is an entirely different. He carries an entirely different style. He is into symbols, and he is into this conspiracy murder stuff, and his character Robert Langdon, and we had discussed that in detail, and we discussed all of his novels in detail. So here I would like to share the difference between these two wonderful. Both are not only my favorites, but an entire world they love both these authors, and they have both have different styles. When we see Dan Brown, he, as I mentioned, that he discusses art, he discusses religions, he discusses symbols, he discusses this conspiracy theories. But when we read Paulo Coelho, he is basically someone who takes us to a journey inside us, and his philosophy is of self-discovery, and his Paulo Coelho's novels are metaphorically rich. He uses a lot of metaphors in his novels. For instance, if he is referring to a mountain, that mountain may not be simply a mountain. He may be referring to courage. And when he discusses, for example, water, so water is not only this water, but in his words, when he discusses water, he might be referring to the flow of life. So this is another difference. When we go through the works of Paulo Coelho, we see that he has used a lot of metaphors in his works, in his novels. But readers, one thing is for sure, that once you start reading this books from Paulo Coelho, and specifically the book I am discussing right now, Alchemist, that is really hard to put it down until you complete this novel. So we'll discuss more on Paulo Coelho's works right after this wonderful track. Welcome back, listeners. This is Imad Kasir from Planet FM 87.6. The show is Mind and Muse. And we were listening to this wonderful track as the world falls down. And today we are discussing one of the greatest novelists of this era, Paulo Coelho. And we are simply, I'm basically sharing with my listeners the story of Alchemist and the philosophy of this wonderful novel. So listeners, I simply share that the hero, that the shepherd, he goes in search of a treasure, and that he is basically following his dream, a recurring dream. And then he follows, he travels a lot, and there in that journey he meets different people, and all of them, they teach him some lessons. And in the end, Santiago, who is the hero, his name, and he realizes that the treasures he was seeking was buried back home, right where his journey began. So a perfect symbol of Coelho's philosophy that sometimes we travel far only to find ourselves again. So it's such a beautiful philosophy that I would repeat this, that it says that sometimes we travel far only to find ourselves again. So this book, Alchemist, it has inspired countless readers, musicians, entrepreneurs, and though Hollywood has been planning a movie adaptation for years, it is quite a reading experience that feels cinematic enough. So if you simply take this book, and listeners, I can tell you that this book, I haven't seen any bookstall in Pakistan where this book is not available. So this is very easily available, and those who haven't read this wonderful novel, they must give this novel a try, and they won't be disappointed. This is such a wonderful novel, and it has such a lovely theme as I am discussing. It's simply beautiful, and as I mentioned, that it has inspired countless readers. Millions of copies of this novel has been sold worldwide, and it is simply brilliant. So the summary, as I just simply said, that it's a story of a shepherd, and he starts, listeners, you see that if you just have to summarize this, it's a simple story that he's a shepherd, and he follows his dream in search of a treasure, and in the end he realizes that the treasure he was searching for, that is basically his self-discovery, and that is there where he began his journey. But you can simply summarize it in one line or in one sentence, but the philosophy behind this lovely concept and this journey to self-discovery, and the concept that when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. This has been beautifully explained in this novel by this author, and this is one of the most read novels of all time, and the story that explores themes of basically spirituality, self-discovery, and most of all, following your dreams. Because that shepherd, he starts this novel starts with his journey to follow his dream, although he was searching for something else, and finally what he actually discovered was an entirely different stuff. However, the point remains that he started that journey by following his dream. So here we are we are taught this lesson by this author that it has to be it has to start with following your dreams. Once you start following your dreams, the universe will definitely help you in achieving that dream, and that is how the hero in this novel, he achieves his path, and he achieves basically a treasure which is far more significant and precious than the treasures he was looking in the start. When the story starts, he is having a dream, and he basically goes to search for that gold, which he in his dream he sees that it is near those pyramids in Egypt. However, that wasn't there, that was inside him. And when he comes back after meeting so many people in that journey, he realizes that his actual treasure was not somewhere outside him, but that was basically inside him, and that was his self-discovery. So this is this wonderful novel. And the second novel of Paulo Coelho that I have selected for today's show, that is Breida. Breida is another beautiful novel, and that was first published in 1990. The first novel, Alchemist, that was in 1988, and in 86 it was written, and in 88 it was published. And this novel, Breida, this is also another spiritual journey, and it is also kind of a self-discovery. The theme is similar to the first novel, but this is a story of a young Irish woman named Breida. So this is the first difference, that the first novel, Alchemist, that was a story of a shepherd, but this story is of an Irish woman named Breida, who is basically searching for wisdom, love, and her place in the universe. So this is another difference, listeners, that in the first novel, in Alchemist, that shepherd, he is basically searching for something he calls a treasure, for something. He follows his dream, and he had an ambition. But in Breida, she basically is in search of wisdom. She is in search of love and her place in the universe. This is another very interesting concept discussed in this lovely novel Breida, that the lead character, this heroine, Irish woman Breida, she is basically trying to she's finding a place in the universe, and she then in her journey of finding these searching for wisdom and love and her place in universe, she meets two spiritual guides. One is a wise man who teaches her about sun's tradition, and a woman, she teaches her the moon's tradition. And this is these are the symbols of the balance of masculine and feminine energies, and logic and intuition. And as I was discussing in the first novel, that Paulo Coelho has this innate ability to discuss these metaphors, and he has simply amazingly put this in this novel very beautifully, that he sun and moon, these traditions, and a wise man and a wise woman, they basically they teach Breida about these traditions and these energies and the balance. The universe has a balance in these two traditions in this as per Paulo Coelho's approach in this novel. And through Breida's search, Paulo Coelho has explored questions like, what is destiny? What is love? And are we met for one soulmate, or are there many paths that lead to fulfillment? So these are the questions we keep on facing in our lives. People ask about destiny. People, is this pre-decided, or do we decide? Do we have the power to decide our destinies? And so in this novel, this theme is so beautifully discussed by this wonderful author, and the themes of love. These are also discussed so beautifully by Paulo Coelho. And Breida is told in this novel, and this is again one of my favorite lines from this novel, quote, "You must not be afraid to make mistakes. You must not be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are a part of the process of discovery." So this is an interesting stuff to focus on, that we simply are afraid of. Generally, people are afraid of making mistakes, and it is only that fear that simply stops them from doing anything at all. So the fear of making a mistake stops them from doing anything, and they cannot achieve anything resultantly. So in this novel, that heroine is told that one shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes, as they say that mistakes are part of the process of discovery. So mistakes do come. We may make mistakes, as they say that making mistakes is a sign of being a human being. So in this novel, Breida is told this lovely fact that mistakes are there to learn, mistakes are there to discover ourselves, and mistakes are part of the process. And only by making mistakes we can learn more, we can be better, and we can experience more once. But if we are afraid of making mistakes, so we won't be doing anything, and we won't be reaching anywhere, neither on the part of self-discovery or anything else, if we want to achieve anything in our lives. So Breida is a novel, and as I in the intro I shared that this theme of self-discovery, this theme of following our passions and dreams, and this you will find in all of Paulo Coelho's novels. And as Elif Shafak, she had said that it's okay, it's okay not to be okay. So in this novel you also find this, that it's also okay not to be like others. If you want to follow something that others don't follow, it's perfectly okay. If someone is searching for wisdom, as most of the people in these days or in our times, we see that most people follow materialistic stuff. Most people follow money or things that are material. There is no harm in following material stuff, because those things are important for us. But if someone is odd enough to search for wisdom, or for or for their place in the universe, or maybe for love, these things, although apparently seems different from rest of the lot, but this is perfectly okay. This is what this novel tells, and this is what, as I refer to another greatest writer of our times, Elif Shafak, she also endorses this concept of following your dreams, even if our dreams are different from others' dreams. So in this lovely novel, Breida, Paulo Coelho focuses on this this very concept of searching for wisdom, love, and the place in one's place in the universe, and then the symbols, the balance of this sun and moon tradition, as I mentioned, that masculine and feminine energies, the logic and intuition. So he has simply blended these concepts so beautifully and so wonderfully that it's really a treat to read this lovely novel. And as we see in Alchemist, the journey of self-discovery. And one more thing, listeners, I must want to share with you is that going through the novels of reading these lovely novels from Paulo Coelho, although whatever we read, we tend to relate ourselves as the lead character, or we have some connection with the characters of any novel. But there is some special stuff with this particular author that once you start reading any of his books, you will feel that you are the main character. You are the one who is on the path of self-discovery. Like, for instance, if you are reading pages of Alchemist, so you will feel that you are that hero, that shepherd, Santiago, and you will relate so many things in your life with the story of that main character, and it will resonate with your story also, no matter whatever your story is. And this is the beauty of Paulo Coelho, that he simply captivates you. He simply his lines, his words, and the power of his imagination, he simply mesmerizes you the way so beautifully that you simply feel yourself as the main character, and you can simply relate to it, and that story resonates with you. And this is what I have found in almost all of his novels. Although we, as I mentioned earlier, that we find this feeling in other authors also, but I think that Paulo Coelho, while reading him, you will feel that he has written this specifically for you. And in Breida also, we see that the main character, that heroine, that Irish woman, Breida, when she starts her journey in search of wisdom, and in searching for her place in the universe and for love, we see that we can relate on so many points that Paulo Coelho has simply touched our hearts. He has simply narrated something we are going through, and this is, listeners, I personally feel that this is something which is this is an innate ability he has, that he can relate to his readers, no matter his readers are from, as we know, that from all the parts of the world. But whatever he writes, he has this ability to relate to it with all of his readers, and all of his readers, like his novels, as I was mentioning, that 65 million copies of Alchemist are sold, and I'm sure that all of the readers, they have related that story with their own story, because that story is of self-discovery. And we all at any point in our lives, we try to discover ourselves, or we have this feeling of discovering ourselves, and that is something we find in all of Paulo Coelho's novel, in Alchemist, and also in this novel Breida. So listeners, this is Imad Kasir on Planet FM 87.6. The show is Mind and Muse, and we are today discussing one of the finest and most read novelists of this era, Paulo Coelho, and I'll be joining you right after this news bulletin, so stay tuned. Welcome back, listeners. This is Imad Kasir on Planet FM 87.6. The show is Mind and Muse, And today we are discussing works of Paulo Coelho. And before the news bulletin, we discussed about his life and two of his wonderful novels, Alchemist and Breida. And listeners, you must have noticed that both those novels were based on the core philosophy that he carries in his novels, that is of self-discovery. And he has got such a wonderful and impressive style of writing that once you start reading his lines, it's simply impossible to put the book down unless you complete that. So Breida, as I shared, that it was a story of self-discovery, and Breida, she is on a journey of self-discovery and self-awareness, and the themes of spirituality, love, personal growth are discussed so beautifully, and it is a wonderful and thought-provoking novel on the human behavior. So now I'll be sharing another beautiful novel and my take on that novel. And this novel was written in, this was basically published in 1998, and this novel is titled as Veronica Decides to Die. And the book opens with a shocking scene. Veronica, a 24 years old woman, she decides to end her life, and because she feels trapped in routine. And when it comes to this word routine, so Paulo Coelho had said that if you think adventure is dangerous, try routine. It's lethal. So Paulo Coelho himself calls this routine lethal. And in this novel, as I mentioned, that it starts because that the main character Veronica, she feels herself trapped in routine, and then she decides to end her life. And this is exactly the explanation of that famous quote from Paulo Coelho. So in this novel, then she tries to, take her life, but she wakes up in a mental institution, and there she is told she has only a few days left. So a few days left to live. And that's where the transformation begins. And in those few days, she experiences more life, love, emotions than she ever had, and outside the asylum. So this story of self-discovery again, Paulo Coelho uses the setting of a mental hospital to ask powerful questions about normality and freedom. And he writes in this novel, look at the beautiful expression, the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. And this is absolutely true, listeners, that the fear of anything, that is more fatal than the actual pain or that actual stuff or suffering from anything. That fear is more lethal. So he writes this, that fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. And he writes this sentence also in this novel, that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dream. So these are two strong and lovely lines that I just shared from this book. And this book was partly inspired by Coelho's own time in psychiatric institutions, and it's a reminder that sometimes we must lose everything, even hope, to rediscover ourselves. So, listeners, as I was sharing in the intro of this show about Paulo Coelho's early life, that his parents, they sent him to a to a psychiatric institution, not only once, thrice, because they felt that Paulo Coelho had some mental disorder, and because he was different than other kids of that age. And then they sent him thrice to that psychiatric institution, and then later on, and this was all in his early days, and he spent some time there. So this particular novel, this is partly his own story that he has simply narrated this story. And Veronica, although she is a female character of this novel, the main lead character, but behind her story, this is actually the story of the author himself, Paulo Coelho's story, because he was sent in that psychiatric institution thrice. However, the way she reaches there, that's an entirely different stuff. Although at the end of the day, it is fiction, it is a novel, it is a story that he has wonderfully created, but he has shown the realities and the stuff that he had faced himself in his early life. And it's a reminder that we have to at times lose everything and anything, even hope, as he says, to rediscover ourselves. And in this case, the lead character Veronica, when she decides to take her life and she attempts suicide, and then she finds herself, she wakes up in a mental institution, and then her story of self-discovery, that story begins from there onwards. And then there are many interesting concepts discussed, that she wakes up, once she wakes up, and then she starts she navigates her new surroundings, and she's forced to confront her own mortality and the meaning of life, and she begins to question her past choices and discover a new sense of purpose. And there she is like, she meets some mysterious characters also. The characters, they guide her, they guide the mysterious man she finds there, and he guides her in many ways, and she starts questioning her past choices before her suicide attempt. And then with the help of those new friends who come in her life, Veronica learns to let go of her fears and desires. So listeners, she let go of her fears and also desires. As I just mentioned, that we have to lose even positive things also to rediscover ourselves. And then she embraces the present moment. And this present moment, while a few programs ago, when I was having a show on self-help books, I had discussed a book, Power of Now. And then on our Mind Sciences show with Munir Ahmed and other on The Secret, and with Tayyaba Malik also in our previous shows, this concept of living in the present moment, this was discussed in detail. So in this particular novel, Veronica decides to die. In this novel also, we see this concept of focusing on our present moment. And there is that she simply she deliberately forgets her past, and she is not focusing on her future. She is only embracing the present moment, and there she starts to see the world in a different light, and then she finds a new appreciation for life. So listeners, this point, as I just mentioned, that this is really a significant philosophy to go for life, that most of the time we are either trapped in our past, or we are worried for our future. But as these authors, as these mind scientists, as all these great people who know the life better than us, who has a better understanding of the literature, who have this better understanding of the of our subconscious mind, how our subconscious minds work, and they all suggest this particular thing, that we should focus on the present moment. And this is also told in this lovely novel very beautifully. And then a life-changing decision, then Veronica's journey takes a dramatic turn as she decides to leave the institution and start anew. And then in a nutshell, this is a wonderful and thought-provoking novel about the human condition, and about exploring themes of mental health and love and search for meaning. And this is, listeners, I can tell you that all of Paulo Coelho's works, you can simply call them masterpieces, and this is also a masterpiece. And this will leave you questioning your own life choices, and it will inspire you to live in the moment, as I just mentioned. So listeners, whenever we come across any masterpiece, any piece of writing, may it be poetry, may it be prose, or may it be any other thing, may it be a painting also, or a piece of music, they all in their own way, they simply tell us many things to focus on. They tell us how to approach life. They tell us how to go for any particular situation. And as I simply mentioned, that power of now, as the book name suggests, I had discussed in this book in detail a few shows back in my program a couple of weeks earlier. And this novel also tells us this particular concept of living in the present moment. So Veronica Decides to Die. This is another wonderful novel, and this, as I mentioned, that this also is his masterpiece. And listeners, this novel was adapted into a film also in 2009. Sarah Michelle, the famous actress, she was the lead character. And although the movie was modest, the message still remains timeless, that the life begins the moment we stop fearing it. And this fear of known and both fear of unknown, these are two greatest fears we may have. And in psychology or in parapsychology, we are told about this, that these two fears, we either have the fear of known or we have fear of unknown. But simply when we read lines like life begins the moment we stop fearing it, so in this both fears are there, as I mentioned a while ago, that either most of us are trapped in our past, we are simply thinking about our past, whatever has gone wrong or whatever mistakes we made, we are concerned, we are in fact we are wasting our time and energies thinking on something that has already passed. And either we are worried or stressed for the future that is yet to come, that may not come the way we are expecting it to come. That is that we simply are at times we are afraid that we may not receive it the way we want it to be. So in this novel, we are in fact taught this lesson in a lovely manner by this wonderful author Paulo Coelho, that life only begins the moment we stop fearing it. And that was exactly that had happened with the lead character Veronica, when she attempts suicide, and somehow she is then she finds her in a mental institutions, and from there on her life takes a change, a dramatic one, and then she is there to receive all this learning, and the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. And also she learns this, that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dream. So listeners, this novel also tells us to focus on our lives in a way to discover our true purpose, to discover our inner self. And in such fast-paced time, we see that most of us are focused on the stuff that is outside us. Most of us are either, as I mentioned, that we are worried for past or for future, and also we are trapped in this digital stuff. And as I discussed this Aleph Shafak's book a few weeks back, How to Stay Sane in an Age of Division, that book also tells us to focus on our own selves. And that in that book, as she mentions, that this technology and all that stuff, that has basically dehumanized us, and literature can rehumanize us. So this particular piece of literature, this particular piece of fiction that I am just sharing with you, this wonderful novel, Veronica Decides to Die, is exactly that novel Aleph Shafak was referring to, that literature can rehumanize us. So if you want to get rehumanized, if you want to search the actual purpose, why are we sent to this world, I think we must we must read such things, such books, such lovely stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, that Paulo Coelho, it's his writings, his novels, they are all about self-discovery. So listeners, we'll be discussing more on it right after this lovely track. Welcome back, listeners. This is Imad Kasir on Planet FM 87.6. The show is Mind and Muse, and we are having a discussion on one of the greatest authors of this time, Paulo Coelho, and we discussed his life, his early life, and that was not an easy one and not that pleasant, as he was sent to a psychiatric institution thrice by his parents, and they thought that he was not like others are. And he, in fact, Paulo Coelho, he wanted to follow his dreams right from the start, and later on when he became an author, then he created and he wrote some masterpieces that we are discussing today. And this brilliant author from Brazil, he has penned some iconic novels like Alchemist, we discussed in detail, and then we discussed Breida and Veronica Decides to Die. And there is an other lovely novel he had written, that is Valkyries, and this was basically a mystical, semi-autobiographical novel about faith, belief, love, and search for one's own guidance from the universe. So this Valkyries. This novel, this is basically written in a very poetic and lyrical way, unlike his other novels that we discussed. Although the themes are similar to those novels, but the style he has adapted in this particular novel is a little different than his rest of the novels. And this is full of symbols, metaphors, and spiritual stuff in this novel. So this is very, very beautifully written. And in this Valkyries novel, this is basically before The Alchemist became a global sensation. This was written earlier than that, but this was published in 1992. Although it's not that famous as Alchemist is, but since it is his own story, it's a semi-autobiographical novel, and it is basically one of the most revealing book, and that dives right into the heart of faith and self-belief. The novel begins with Coelho himself, and he writes himself into the story as a man who is searching for his guardian angel, and he's searching for guidance. And he, with his wife Chris, they travel deep into a desert, and there they are guided by a mysterious group of warrior women called the Valkyries. So now, if you think of the Valkyries as mythological, you are right, and they are some legendary women, and who carried the souls of warriors to heaven. But in this particular story, this legend that we discussed of these Valkyries, in Coelho's story, they represent something more human than those of that legend that we discussed. The power to face your own darkness and find the divine within yourself. So as listeners, as we discussed in rest of his novels, starting from The Alchemist, and then Breida, and then Veronica Decides to Die, you notice that in all his novels, in most of his novels, we see that the characters, they are searching for something, and in the end, may it be anything external, or may it be anything personal, or internal rather. They end up, the characters, they end up finding that thing inside their own self, and this is basically we may say that this is the basic theme, as today's theme of our show is Paulo Coelho's themes. So theme of his novels is basically self-discovery, and this self-discovery that as we discussed that in Alchemist, that shepherd, that he starts a journey in search of a treasure, but after traveling and after meeting so many people, in the end he realizes that the treasure was not somewhere outside but inside his own self, and that was something called self-discovery. And in Breida novel also we saw the same similar story, and in Veronica the story is different, that the main character, that she tries to end her life, and once she's not successful in doing that, and she wakes up in a mental institution, and later on she also she realizes that the stuff she was looking outside her outside herself, that was somewhere inside her own self, and that was self-discovery. And that is the journey is different. The journey may be different. The guides may be different in these novels, but the lesson we get is identical in almost all of his works. And in this work also, as I mentioned, and that the story, the power, it tells us that if you face your own darkness, that will allow you, and that will make the way for the divine within yourself. As Paulo Coelho says that everything is inside your own self, and we need to take a journey inside ourselves to discover ourselves. Whatever we are searching for, that is not somewhere else, but that is already within us. It's a matter of discovering ourselves. And as the main characters of this particular novel, which is in fact his semi-autobiographical novel, they travel these and he has named the main character. He's in fact shown himself as the main character. He and his wife, they travel through that desert, and Paulo faces doubt, temptation, and his own inner demons. And Chris, his wife, she goes through her own transformation, questioning faith, love, and what it means to believe in something bigger than themselves. So there are beautiful lines and paras in this novel that I want to share, but I'll simply share a couple of lines. It says, quote, "If you believe in miracles, you will see miracles. Life becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy," unquote. And throughout the book, Coelho explores this tension between reason and faith, and between wanting proof and simply trusting. And this is one of the major questions we see these days, that this is always a debate. There is always a debate going on, that proof, faith and reason, and wanting proof and simply trusting the process. So the desert becomes a metaphor. As I mentioned earlier, that this particular novel, although Paulo Coelho uses metaphors a lot in all of his works, and the desert becomes a metaphor for the inner silence, and where we face ourselves honestly. So in this particular novel, as they are traveling to that massive desert, although the characters are in that desert, but that desert is actually their inner self. That is a metaphor for their inner silence. As we know that deserts are silent. There is no much of noise in the desert, and he has basically shown that desert as a metaphor. So in one moment of revelation, the Valkyries, they tell him, "Destroy the barriers you have created between yourself and the world. That is the only way to hear your angel." And isn't that something we all struggle with? We build barriers. We build barriers like doubt, fear. As I was mentioning, that we have this fear of known and fear of unknown, and then pride and ego, and then we wonder why we can't hear life's whispers. So this is a question we must ask ourselves, that these barriers, these are built by ourselves. The barrier of fear, the barrier of doubt, the barrier of pride or ego, we have created these barriers ourselves. And once we create, listeners, once we create such barriers by ourselves, we won't be able to hear what life truly has for us, and we won't be able to hear the life's whispers, because we have to be clean, we have to be cleansed before we can receive any such message from the universe or from our from the life, unless we are overwhelmed by by the stuff like, as we mentioned, by these barriers they call, may it be fear or doubt or pride, whatever. They basically stop such things, and such barriers stop us from reaching to our inner of the life whispers, which is the actual self-discovery. Unless we have these negative emotions in our lives, we will never be in a position to discover ourselves in reality. So the beauty of this particular novel, Valkyries, lies in how personal it feels. And it's not about seeking divine visions or miracles outside of us. It's about recognizing that miracles happen every time we listen to our own truth. And as we know that once we start listening to us, our own selves, it is basically when we realize, when we recognize, that is the true message what universe wants us to have. And as he say that in this slower book than his other books, it's a quieter book, and it asks some powerful questions. And for instance, it asks us that can we really change our fate, and can love survive doubt? Or in such questions, these are very powerful questions, although asked in a very simple way, very in easy words. Like, for instance, let me repeat these beautiful questions: that can we really change our fate, or can love survive doubt? So these questions are addressed very beautifully, and in a metaphorically and poetically. Paulo Coelho, as I shared this fact that he was a lyricist also before he became a novelist. So he is as good in poetry also as he is in prose. And this particular book, Valkyries, this is written in a poetic way. So those who have interest for poetry also, they must read this book in particular, because he has used so many beautiful metaphors and so many beautiful examples we see and symbols. And this book is absolutely lyrical. And in that particular and mesmerizing way, he has discussed these concepts of that we just simply discussed, that can love really survive doubt, can we really change our fate, and what is basically the purpose, why are we sent to this universe. And it's basically it's a mystical and semi-autobiographical novel, and as I mentioned that he has given this message by simply naming the main character as his own, and he is basically himself. And he adds, he also takes his wife into this with him in this lovely journey of self-discovery. And there they are welcomed by the Valkyries there, and they are more human than the legend. and then they guide them, and they tell them that it's about recognizing that miracles happen every time we listen to our own truth, and what in fact the truth is, what exactly is reality, what is truth. Truth may be different for different people, and reality may be different for different people, but what actually is divine truth? Divine truth is same for all, and divine truth is the same in all ages and for all the cultures and for all the languages. And in this novel he has discussed that so beautifully, and the best thing I like about this particular book, this particular novel, is that his style, as I mentioned, that this novel is different from rest of his books, as this is highly lyrical and poetic and spiritual, and the metaphors he has used are simply amazing, and the symbols, it's a lot of stuff in this particular novel. Although it's a journey like his other novels, a journey of self-discovery, a journey of finding the true meaning of life, a journey where the guides, or where the persons, the people, they come across this couple who is in search of the truth, who is in search of the higher meaning of their existence, and on the journey they find different they are guided by different people, and like his other books, they guide them for the true purpose of life, for the true existence and the questions. And the best thing, apart from the style he has carried in this particular novel, are these the barriers he has discussed, that unless we remove those barriers of pride, of doubt, of ego, of fear, we cannot see our actual worth, we cannot rediscover ourselves, and we cannot actually receive the message the life has to convey to us. So this is simply a story again of self-discovery, of self-realization, and of self knowing your own worth through these journeys that the author wants us to have with him through these wonderful cultures across the globe. He discusses many parts of the world, he discusses many cultures of the world in his books, and the theme remains the same in all of his novels, that following your dreams for your to discover your own self and to listen to your inner voice. And in every instance we come across in his novels, we see that may it be Santiago, or may it be that Breida, the characters, the main characters of his novels, we see that they approach towards life in different ways. They approach towards life in different angles, with a different motive in their minds. But one thing is common, that they all reach to what he calls self-discovery, whether they are searching for some treasure, whether they are searching for the purpose of their life, or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, they simply are they end up discovering themselves through so many different ways, through so many different cultures, through so many different people, through their own life experiences. And so Paulo Coelho, he has got this wonderful way of telling his readers about this. self-discovery, and we discussed all of his, most of his novels, those novels that were selected for today's show. I tried to keep them different and simple. He has done a lot of work. We come across his books everywhere. We find these books on every bookstall, and these are simply wonderful books. So, listeners, today we discussed one of the greatest novelists of our era, the very famous Paulo Coelho from Brazil, and we started his personal life, which was not that pleasant, as he was sent to psychiatric institution thrice by his parents, and they thought that he was not normal, and yet he followed his dreams, and he became one of the most read and most loved author of all the times. We discussed the basic theme of his writings, which I was just mentioning, that it is self-discovery, it is following your dreams, and it is search for the truth. And we see this theme in all of the novels we today discussed. We discussed a few of his classic and iconic novels, Alchemist, and then we discussed Breida. We discussed Veronica Decides to Die, and we discussed Valkyries. So all these novels, the characters are different, the stories are different, but the philosophy is same. The message is same, and the message, as I mentioned, that it is of self-discovery. He takes us, this wonderful author, Paulo Coelho, he takes us to a journey inside ourselves. He wants us to look for the answers, not outside ourselves, but to focus on our inner selves in a world, in an age of such fast pace and such digital stuff everywhere. When everyone is stick to their mobiles, and their this stuff going on everywhere, this fast paced lives. But in such a fast pace, Paulo Coelho, he wants us to pause for a while, and to just sit down somewhere, and to just calm ourselves, and just to focus on our inner words, the inner whispers. And he simply invites us to search for the answers, not from outside but from inside us, and that is how we can rediscover, or we can simply discover ourselves. So, listeners, this was all from today's show. I hope you have enjoyed this show. This is Imad Kasir on Planet FM 87.6. The show is Mind and Muse, and until next time, this is me signing off. Allah Hafiz.